The family business.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Air India's Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Before we take off, we would like to inform you about the flight safety features and procedures of this aircraft. Please pay close attention to this flight safety video.
Requesting all ground personnel to deplane, please closing doors for departure.
I stashed my bag in the overhead space and approached my front row seat. The inner and outer seats were already occupied. An older man in the aisle seat and a younger one barely out of his teens at the window. They had a familial similarity. Father and son, probably. I didn't mind the middle seat, but I hoped I wouldn't get caught in their crosstalk. Across me. I was planning on using the flight time to sleep. But before I could even buckle up, the older man burst out. "Aren't you Dr. Nader, heart surgeon? You operated on my father several years ago. You did a great job on him, doctor, surgically as well as medically. He was properly unnerved by the damage you described he'd done to his body and has followed your advice scrupulously. Doesn't skip his medicines, walks regularly, and even gave up smoking. His cardiac physician says he keeps good health now. Our family has much to thank you for. We are very grateful, sir." Before I could even get out a word in reply, the son burst in from my other side. "Did you always want to be a doctor, sir? Are you from a family of doctors or something like that?" My dad, edging his thumb sideways past me, believes I should stay loyal to the family business. God alone knows why I gave up on my snooze and entered the game, saying, "I come from a business family too. Our family business is the law." My parents were lawyers, coming from long lines of lawyers and judges. My brothers are lawyers, some of their wives too, and many of our children. My sister, who refused to study law, volunteers 12-hour days for legal aid NGOs, keeping long-term under trials and bail candidates out of the clutches of the prison system. The sun beamed at me, big 100-watt smiles. This was evidently the answer he'd craved. "So you made your own path and totally believe in following your dreams," he averred on my behalf. I'd not thrown caution completely to the winds, so I wagged my finger at him. "Nothing as romantic as that, young man. Anytime you want to achieve anything, you have to be prepared to work hard. And when you need to achieve it in the teeth of opposition, you have to work bloody damn hard, and no doubt about it. Don't be having any romantic notions of rainbows and roses. It's more like years of slog, sweat, and stick-to-itiveness. So think long and hard about that before you toss aside the security and comfort your family has striven to create." The wattage had gone down on the beams, but he wasn't ready to give up yet. "That's a given, sir. But tell me, did they support you?" That brought back a strong memory. And since I was already in with my penny, I went forward with my pound. "Ha! Let me tell you how they supported me. I was in a residential college, staying at one of those hostels from hell where everything stank of sweat, vomit, and worse. The food was abominable. How we survived is anybody's guess. We were all broke, including me with my swanky parents, because until I graduated, I was on a tiny stipend. Only fees and study materials were liberally covered by the family. But we brothers are tight, and often my elder brothers slipped me a bit of cash or bought me a good solid meal. One night, during exams in the second year I recall, one of them called me down from my dorm. They never came in, said they'd retch from the stink. I had a strict routine during exam time. I closed my books and hit the bed at midnight, whatever the state of my preparedness. I believed the sleep would do me more good than the extra cramming. When my brother came calling that night, it was close to midnight. The time I spent with him would take me over my study deadline, and I was irritated as hell. But he was gruff and brotherly, asked me how I was bearing up, whether I was up for it, and what exam I had the next day. When I told him, he punched me lightly in the chest with a folded sheet of paper. "What?" I asked, and he smirked and wiggled his eyebrows in his silly way. "Tomorrow's paper," said he. "Why?" I asked. He shrugged. "If you pluck and become a derelict failure, we'll have to support you and your wife and kids for the rest of your useless life, so it's a kind of insurance, I guess." It was plausible. I didn't waste time asking how he'd got it, but crammed it into my pocket and murmured a thanks as I strode back. I'd have 5 minutes with the dratted thing max before I hit my self-imposed curfew. "Don't be a burden," he growled at my retreating back. My roomies had to know what I was urgently studying so close to my deadline, and when I told them, they all crowded around. Everyone wanted in. "I'd give it to them after midnight," I assured them. "Just leave me this 5-7 minutes alone." But as I scanned it, I knew it was a lost cause. Either the thing was a fake, which I hoped it was, or I was a dead man. With 2 minutes to go before the witching hour, I handed it over, saying, "I think it's a fake. I'm not wasting any time on it, and I suggest you don't either." And I turned in for the night, determined to sleep off my panic. My roomies grabbed it with eager enthusiasm and ranged themselves to cram it for the rest of the night. I warned them it was way out of context, but they simply couldn't resist the temptation. The next day, in the exam hall, there was vicious rage, fueled by frustration and sleeplessness, when I was proved right. That shut the eager sun up for a while, and I used the opportunity to grab the sleep I'd planned. Much later, the flight attendant woke me with a gentle tap, requesting me to straighten my seat for landing. As my fumbling hands reached to oblige, I noticed the glum face of the lad beside me, and the whole pre-sleep discussion resurfaced. I felt twinges of guilt. I sat through the final flight announcements, the bumps of the landing and the taxi to the terminal, and warned myself it was now or never. So I turned to the youngster and confessed. "By the way, you should know that while I've often been mistaken for this excellent Dr. Nader, I'm not a cardiac surgeon or any kind of a doctor at all. And in any case, you shouldn't let my career choices decide yours." I didn't want to look at the senior gent. I'd played him for a fool, a pretty mean trick, and however sick I was of being mistaken for someone else, that wasn't his fault. With perfect timing, the seatbelt indicator blinked off, and I lumbered to my feet to retrieve my bag. But the hopeful again youngster jumped up like a jack-in-the-box. "So okay, you're not Dr. Nader, but you're something. You look successful. What's your take on this family business thing? Are you a businessman or a professor or something?" I wondered if I should dodge that question, and took a moment to think as I pulled my bag out of the overhead compartment. "Me?" I asked the youngster over my shoulder, coming to a decision. "I'm a judge." As I edged past the senior gent into the aisle, I couldn't help noticing that now he was the one beaming the 100-watt smile.